Hi guys, I'm Chormy, welcome back to my channel. Today I show you how to make a beat for We Don't Trust You by MetroBoomin and Future. This beat was made by MetroBoomin, D-Reach and Prince85. So let's begin with the breakdown. It's quite a complex beat. It took me a little more time than usual to recreate it because we have a lot of different sounds, beat switches. I had to recreate all these synth sounds and patches. I had to admit that it wasn't that easy, but at the end we made it. So I'm so happy because this was one of the most requested beat from this album. So let's start with the breakdown. First thing, I use this piano from Omnisphere, Keyscape. It's just the classic keyscape piano with a little bit of timbre shifting, and the melody is pretty simple. It's just some chords with a counter melody. We are in the F sharp minor scale, but they're starting on the 6th chord, so they're using the D Lydian mode. So the first chord is the D major chord with an inversion of the root note, and then they're starting the counter melody on the 4th note of the scale, so the diminished 5th of the first chord. Then we have the 3rd, and then they're using the sus2. The second chord is a diminished chord, is the 4th chord of the scale, is the G sharp diminished chord. So we have G sharp, B, and D. As you can see, in this case I'm using the B as the higher note, so we have this inversion of the 3rd. I'm not really sure about the F sharp in this chord, but I left it there in the background. As you can see, the velocity is quite low. In this case is a 7. The counter melody is playing on the B, the G sharp, and the F sharp. And then we have the F sharp minor chord, and they're using the sus2, the root note, and the 7 as the counter melody. So this is the melody that they're playing for the whole beat. Then we have a synth bass for the intro. It's a really simple bass. I made it using Serum. It's just 2 saw waves with a little bit of voices and detune. As you can see, they're playing on 2 different octaves. And then I'm just applying a filter to cut all the hikes. These are the effects for the piano. I was just using an EQ, RC20 and Fruity Chorus. And then for the bass, we have this EQ boosting a little bit of the mids, chorus and Saturn. And they're just playing the root notes. Then they're using this brass patch as a transition to the first verse. For this one, I'm using Xenology with this preset. It's not the original one, but it's sounding similar. And they're just playing the same root notes with this ascending counter melody to give this building feeling to the transition. For the effects, I have a reverb, EQ, RC20 and sketch cassette. So let's move on to the counter melody for the verse. I'm using this piano from Omnisphere. Obviously, I'm not sure about this preset. It's sounding similar, but I don't think it's the original one. I made some changes on this preset, so I think I shift the timbre of this layer, and then I also had this layer here of a dream piano in the background. This layer, they're just playing a simple arpeggio in the same scale. As you can see, they are starting on the root note, and we have the diminished 5th of the first chord. C sharp is just the 5th, and we have the A, the F sharp, the G sharp. So these are played on the 2nd chord, so this is the root note, this is the 3rd, this is the 5th, but this is already playing on the other chord, so on the F sharp minor. So it's a 6th for the F sharp minor. And then we have the A, I think it's like a diminished 9 for this chord, the G sharp diminished. And then we also have the 7 is F sharp. And we also have the same counter melody, but on a different sound. In this case, it's like a synth brass pad. I made it using Serum, so it's a simple saw wave, 5 voices, detune, a little bit of release, filter, EQing, and a little bit of reverb and RC20. So let's move on to the drums. It's a really simple drum. So we have the snare on the 3, 2-step hi-hats, and then a simple kick. For the 808, I'm using this spins sample with a little bit of distortion. I'm using a little bit of EQ, and then I also use this function of FL to create a loop on the 808. For this fill and also for the snare, I used AI to extract them, and this is just a simple tom drum fill with a little bit of beat crash and delay. We also have these hi-hat rolls, and then for the last part, we have this perk that is used as a snare. And we also have some tom percussions. So this is the final result for the first part. Then we have a simple transition using this gunshot sound. And then I think we have a different synth bass coming in. So I use Serum to create a similar patch, 2 saw waves on 2 different octaves, 4 voices, detune, a sub sign. We have this cutoff filter with a lot of resonance and drive. And I'm also using this LFO to control the filter a little bit. For the effects, I have a little bit of chorus, Saturn, and this bass is completely mono. Then we have the same structure as the first verse, and at the end we have a little bridge and a beat switch. So for the bridge I'm using the same synth bass, the same synth brass as this section here, and then I'm also using this triangle synth, maybe it's a synth that they recorded. Also this synth bass, it could be a Moog or some real synth that they recorded. And this is a simple triangle vibrato lead. So I'm using a triangle, 3 voices, detune, a little bit of filter, the LFO that is controlling the fine, and I'm also using the mod wheel as a controller to the fine. So I'm accentuating the vibrato in this section here. And I also have the portamento and legato on. So the synth is sliding a little bit. So this is the full section. So at the end we have this beat switch. I'm using the same synth brasses as the initial transition, so I'm using this layer from Xenology, another layer always from Xenology, and a little bit of texture in the background from this bank. It's always a brass. We are playing the same root notes but with a different counter melody, and they're always using the same technique to create this ascending feeling in the transition. And at the end, they're also using triplets to create more movement in the melody. Then we have a simple arpeggio in the background, giving some texture. I'm always using Xenology with brasses and strings, and I put a lot of EQing on the hikes to hide them in the background. Then we have a simple saw lead. I use Serum as always. It's just a simple saw lead with portamento. And this FM bell in the background. I'm not sure about this preset for this section. I think it's the preset that is used here, obviously, but I don't know if it's the same preset used here just as a texture, or if it's like a drum loop or a different sound. So in this case, I use Serum to create this simple FM bell. I'm using a sine wave with this harmonic. So this is how it sounds without FM. It's just a bell with 3 voices and a little bit of detune filter, but then I'm using FM with another sine wave to modulate the first sine wave. So as you can see, the second sine wave is +3 octave and -2 semitones, and the FM is set on 35%. So this is the effect that the modulation is giving to the sound. As you can hear, the frequency modulation is giving this metallish sound to the preset. Then I have this delay and a little bit of reverb, and this is the final sound. For the drums, we have a different snare. I use this sample from the BWB. And we also have this simple triangle always from the same pack. Hi-hats. Hi-hat rolls, and then the 808. I think it's the classic Ric Flair one. So this is the beat switch. And then we have the last section. So I'm using the same FM bell with a saw pad layer in the background. I'm using 2 saw waves on 2 different octaves, 10 voices, detune, and a lot of filter, and a lot of release, distortion, and chorus and reverb. So this is the layer in the background. And then they're using some strings to give this descending movement to the melody. I'm using a simple preset from Xenology. It's just this one. And then we have the bass. I'm using a sine wave for the sub, another sine wave on the higher octave, a saw on the higher octave with 3 voices and detune, delay, reverb, this boost at 442 Hz, little bit of reverb, filter, and for the plucky sound I'm using this LFO set as an envelope to give this shape to the filter. So they're just playing the same root notes. Then for the end I'm using the same strings and brasses to create this different melody, but I'm also using Serum to create this other layer. It's like a pluck, digital pluck, and I'm using this sine wave, these 3 harmonics, 3 unison, detune, delay, reverb, but in this case the most important part is the filter. So I'm using a band 24 filter, this is the frequency, and I'm using 92% resonance. This is really important to create this weird sounding pluck. So these are all the melodies together. Then we also have some brasses. So that's all for this video. Smash a like and subscribe if you like this remake. I will leave all my link in the description if you want to support me. I have a Patreon page where I upload all the FLPs from my remakes, Instagram if you want to follow me, and Beatstars if you want to check out my beats or drum kits. Bye and see you in the next video.